Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of the Golden Podcast. I am your host, the Golden Scouta. And today, me and my guest are going to be talking about the 22nd Tenkaichi Budokai Arc. And it wouldn't be a Dragon Ball Tournament podcast without my very special guest, Kihokai 1994. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a long break since the last one, so I'm definitely ready to talk about the 22nd tournament as opposed to the 21st that we started with. But we will soon get to even greater tournaments than this. But this is going to be the one that I think really defines the Tenkaichi Budokai for a little bit, at least in my eyes, for a lot of the fandom. When you haven't really seen what's about to happen, it's kind of a shock. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly, and I think that you can agree with me that this is by far the most consistently good tournament. That every single match in this tournament is enjoyable for each in their own reasons. It's not like where there is those matches in the 21st or 23rd tournaments that kind of like let you down or anything like that. What do you have to say about that?
No, I do think a lot of the fights are fairly consistent with what you want to see from those characters at that time, and then they obviously throw in a lot of surprises. They always try to throw in random surprises at, the world tournaments, but like a lot of the deception and stuff that is thrown in actually wraps up nicely at the end of the tournament, at least in my feeling.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm sure we'll go into that later, but let's just dive into this arc right now and just kind of talk about the setup for this thing. So yeah, at the end of the Red Ribbon Army arc, we saw that there was this kind of time skip, and yes, it was kind of instant, and I know that there's that whole thing of, like, we didn't get to see any of their training, but at this point, there isn't really any reason to kind of rehash what we saw in the 21st Budokai arc, because last what we saw at the Red Ribbon Army arc, we saw Goku kind of going and training on his own, and we definitely know he did some really good training because he swam over to the tournament. And we saw that Yamcha, Krillin, and the Muten Roshi, and even Bulma, she was like, how am I dragged into this? And they were kind of like running off to go train and all that, so we know that Yamcha is now part of the Turtle School in a way. So yeah, I mean, even though it was a very short kind of transition from arc to arc, and we know that it was about 3 years from the Red Ribbon Army arc to the next arc, seeing everyone kind of reminisce again and kind of meet each other again is pretty funny, especially whenever, like, we see, like, a couple of standout moments for me, I would say, is just, like, yeah, that whole moment of, like, Goku swimming there and just, like, Oolong being like, what kind of a crazy, tough idiot is this? And just, like, another thing of, like, whenever the Muten Roshi is kind of, like, hitting on a girl, like, how he kind of always does, like, Yamcha and Bulma and Krillin were kind of like, we don't even know this guy on the plane over there. And those are just some of the standout moments for me. I mean, what do you think about this whole introduction?
I by far think that the 23rd introduction to everybody is better than this one, for the fact of there's actual character differences, with aging and everything. But I do like the fact that we haven't, quote-unquote, seen these characters interact with each other for 3 years. So, I mean, you get to see the kind of bittersweet moments of everybody kind of, reuniting, and then you get the quirky stuff of, everybody always taking forever to come sign in and be there. And then, you get the little nod of Master Roshi, like, doing the whole, like, hey, it's me, Jackie Chun, but I need to sign in, but just don't tell anybody it's me. Like, that kind of thing, just still the secretive kind of alter ego of him that's going to soon not actually be in the series anymore. So the last hurrah with him is actually very interesting to see throughout this tournament.
Yeah, I agree. And also, like, that whole tension of, like, Goku getting there within, like, literally, like, the last minute of registration was kind of interesting in this. Just because, like, yeah, whenever you're seeing this the first time, you know that Goku is going to get there because, obviously, this is his story, but I mean, just watching it play out, even in the manga, like whenever things are more fast-paced, there's a little bit of tension there. And just kind of seeing Goku come over there with like the cheetah or whatever kind of fur he was wearing, that was kind of cool, because you know that, like, because he lost his gi, obviously he must have gone through some pretty tough training.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, just going on to, I would say, just the preliminary matches, it's pretty satisfying just seeing everyone own everyone of the Turtle School. Like, you see Yamcha just, like, one-punch a guy. You see Krillin take this big-ass guy by a finger, just kind of, like, chuck him out the thing. It's just, there's that satisfying thing of, like, the little guy taking out the big guy. Like, it kind of is reminiscent to, like, the whole fight that Krillin did way later in the Buu arc with that one guy.
With this world tournament in particular, it's actually, you know, the one that starts the trend of every 3 years instead of every 5 years, for the fact of how many contestants this world tournament had, since, you know, they actually had 182 people that they had to get through before they could even start, you know, the semifinals. Yeah, and we also get the actual introduction of Master Roshi's rival from when they were kids and everything, and that whole storyline. So, like, we actually get you know, Master Roshi's backstory actually dove into a little bit deeper. I mean, I know that they do that more in the anime, but even in the manga, they still talk about, you know, their past and why they know each other and why they're rivals.
Oh yeah, definitely. Suru Senin is definitely a very mere kind of master to the Muten Roshi, because obviously he's kind of like more of like the way of the assassin, whereas the Muten Roshi is more of just like, eat well, rest well, play well. That's the philosophy of the Muten Roshi Turtle Hermit teachings, that kind of thing. So it seems like the Suru Senin is just more of like teaching his students to be more of assassins and kind of like using their power for evil, I guess, and like the Muten Roshi is just more like a pure master. So we definitely get that kind of dynamic between the two in this arc. And another thing I find really amusing is just, like, Lunch kind of coming in and being funny again. Just because, like, her clearing the benches of just, like, shooting up in there, just, like, getting out of the way, people.
Yeah, and she gets the front row seats for him. It's great.
Exactly, and I love that moment, and it's just, like, nobody, like, ever follows up and does anything about it. Like, it's just like, hey, we have this maniac in our stadium.
She is just spraying inside the air hot lead, and nobody cares, nobody does anything. They just get out of her way and just let her stand in the front.
Right, and that's like one of the most, I don't know, it's a very amusing Lunch moment, and it might be like my favorite moment of hers besides the whole like, oh, Tenshin Han, I've fallen in love with your savagery. But
oh, that's soon to come from now.
Yeah, but I mean, speaking of that, so we have the whole Crane School students here. Tenshin Han, Chiaotzu, and Suru Senin. I mean, what are your first impressions of those guys?
I mean, if I remember right, it's Chiaotzu who we're actually introduced to first in his telekinesis. So, I mean, off the bat, you're already shown just how powerful they are. And then through Tien's match, you're shown how savage he is. So, I mean, just out of the front with no character development, they literally introduce the new antagonist of the arc, and I mean, they really introduce him hard. I mean, it's enough to actually make you root against them the minute after they're introduced, and I feel that that's really powerful, setting that up, since the tournaments are actually so short, and in some instances throughout the series, the tournaments are actually cut, you know, cut in half. So, I mean, like, they're already short enough, and trying to have character development over a small run of chapters is usually quite hard. So, seeing this introduction of a whole new school and two new characters more, but 3 characters introduced, 2 of them being the fighters of this actual tournament, really kind of sets the bar pretty high, especially for the fights that come later on, because it brings a little bit more tension just knowing how they act already.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you're saying, because one of the things about this is that, yeah, it is very, very hard to have that kind of character development within kind of a tournament arc, but this arc really pulls it off really nicely, because at the very beginning, you get this sense that Tien Shinhan is kind of being, I guess, kind of blindly loyal to Suru Senin, because later in this thing, he is talked some sense into, and that he's kind of revealed not to be as bad of a guy as he comes off of. And I mean, it kind of goes off on this whole hierarchy of respect in a way. Like, Chiaotzu is more loyal to Tien Shinhan than Suru Senin, and Tien Shinhan is just more loyal to Suru Senin than anyone else, it seems like.
Yeah, and they definitely established that pretty quick, that Tien is the more experienced and the elder in their role as apprentices under their master, and definitely shows his dominance in their relationship.
Oh, definitely, especially since Chiaotzu just listens to everything that Tien Shinhan says, but whenever Suru Senin was like, kill Goku, like, Chiaotzu was like, but I want to see this match finish up. And yeah, I don't know, there's one thing about Chiaotzu, and it's that for 2 seconds, he was actually somewhat intimidating. Like, he seemed like somebody who was actually, like, a threat or something like that. And that was with him, one of the starting things with him is that, like, him rigging the matches was something we had never seen at that point, and we won't see, really, until, I would say, the Buu arc. And I feel like a lot of people forget that Chiaotzu was the original tournament rigger of this show.
He does it in the 23rd as well, but not as bad as what he does for the 22nd. He does it for the 23rd to get a couple matches that they know they needed to get together, but I mean, you still have people getting blind luck numbers and actually having a real draw to have like a real fight.
Yeah, because I remember 2 specific fights right here, which we're going to go into right now. I remember that Tien Shinhan was just like, I want to teach this fool a lesson, because Yamcha was just like shit-talking him to the max. And then with the whole thing of like Wolfman or Man-Wolf being all pissed off at Jackie Chun, because like of the whole moon thing, like obviously there was some bad blood there. So Tien Shinhan was just like, Chiaotzu, rig his number to that one. So yeah, I mean, it definitely isn't as bad as the 23rd, but yeah, this one just seemed totally rigged, and it was a pretty interesting setup.
Well, also the setup shows off a good technique or a good tactic for Tien, because you know the whole reason that he wants Chiaotzu to doctor the lottery is so that he can see his opponent's moves and he can study his opponents, because he knows he's going to get to the finals, but he wants to know who he's going to have to fight and how he's going to fight them.
Oh yeah, because Tien Shinhan is so goddamn confident in this arc. Like, it's pretty insane just because
he's alpha to the max.
Exactly, and I mean, I guess alpha in just like the sense of like, gosh, like he came in like kind of like hit from Dragon Ball Super, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
But I would say let's start off with this tournament now.
Yeah, most definitely. So you want to talk about some of the prelim fights, or are we just going straight into the semifinals?
Let's talk about some of the preliminary fights. The only one I really want to talk about is just Goku versus King Choppa. And that fight, I mean, the reason why I like that is just because it's one of those classic, like, Goku has really, like, come way further than we ever thought he could. Because, I mean, he used that whole, like, multiple fist technique, and it's just like, whoa, he's dodging every single blow and parrying every single blow. And then Goku just, like, comes towards him, and then King Choppa's just like, I got you, and then Goku uses that mouth blast to kind of, like, not propel himself further enough for King Choppa's punch to hit him, and then Goku's just like, I got you. So it's just not even that Goku is stronger physically, he also has really good strategy at that point, and I would say that that's one of the reasons why I say that this is one of the most consistently good tournaments, is because there is so much strategy used in this tournament. Like, there's so much.
Yeah, I really don't see a lot of quote-unquote ass pools of strength, because all of the prelim fights and the semifinal fights, the feats that you see our characters do, you can realistically see them obtaining that strength in the 3 years, because we know how dedicated all of them are to training. We know how they train, and we know that, especially with, you know, the help of their master and Goku himself, you know, just in the woods, because you know how Goku is, you just get to see how strong these kids / teenagers can get with just a little bit of mentoring and a little bit of help. And I mean, these humans, because we have to remember, at the end of the day, one, aliens weren't even a thing in Dragon Ball yet, so we didn't know that Goku was a Saiyan. He was a humanoid that was supposed to be on human, you know, on Earth at that point. These human-like characters have amassed these huge, overwhelming power levels, and it's awesome to see them demonstrate how easily they can 1KO or just take out these prelim fighters, because, I mean, these are supposed to be the best martial artists from around the world, and the same, you know, 5-6 people are always in the semifinals of all the tournaments from here on out. It's the same. It's almost the same exact people.
Yes, and like one of the things that really stands out to me in this tournament of just like how strong these characters are is whenever Goku and Tien Shinhan do fight, the Muten Roshi is just like, watch closely, guys. You might not ever see a fight like this again.
Good foreshadowing. Even though the 23rd was not even close to an idea in Toriyama's mind, yeah, but still, good foreshadowing on his part.
Yeah, exactly. And, oh my gosh. Like, this whole tournament is just, like, top-tier shonen. Like, oh my gosh. Let's just get right into it. So, Yamcha versus Tien Shinhan. Like, this is what I think of whenever I personally think of, this is a good fight with great martial arts tactics, and just, like, the opponents kind of going back and forth and just avoiding each other's techniques. Like, especially, like, what makes this fight so amazing, too, is especially if you watch it in the anime. Like, Yamcha has his own insert song, Wolfang Hurricane, if I'm not mistaken. That insert song is just, it's amazing, and it just makes that fight just amp up to just top tier shonen levels. And I know I've said this before, and I'm just like, I've never liked Yamcha jokes because I feel like a lot of people judge Yamcha just based off of his fight with the Cybermen, but this fight really shows Yamcha at his very, very best. So yeah, screw all the Yamcha jokes.
Not only does it show him at his very best, but he actually earns Tien's respect, because he was doing so much, you know, shit-talking, that Tien was like, I can't wait to wipe you out in the first round. Like, that's why I want to fight you, and that's why I have Chiaotzu doctoring the lottery. Like, he wants to fight him so bad because of how much, you know, confidence Yamcha has, and he wants to crush it, which, I mean, he does ultimately crush his will, but he does end up respecting him as a fighter at first.
Absolutely, I was just about to say that. Like, I seriously love this whole thing of just Tien Shinhan being like, this guy is more than what meets the eye. Like, you're more than just a big mouth. So, to me, it shows that Yamcha is also kind of on the level of the Muten Roshi. Like, even though he kind of makes, like, a noob mistake, I guess I would say, just because, like, whenever Tien Shinhan used a Ki on his Kamehameha, like, Yamcha was just, like, sitting there in midair, just, like, in mid-thought, just being like, oh my gosh, how could he have dodged this? And then just before he...
But, hold on, real quick, Kevin, because you totally skipped something. He did a Kamehameha. That's the crazy thing, too. Yamcha whipped out a Kamehameha in a tournament. Like, that's how we got introduced to him being able to do that technique. Like, he had been with the you know, Kame school for 3 years, and this is a move that took Master Roshi 50 years or so to, like, actually, like, acquire and train himself to learn and, like, come up with this technique. and all of his students can do it. Starting this tournament, all of his students can do it.
That's true. I do have to give him that credit because it's not like anyone said to Yamcha, like, oh, you can't really utilize that technique like how they did with Kuririn, where, like, how, like, Kuririn tried to do the Kamehameha, and Roshi and Goku are just like, oh, don't try and do it right now because you haven't mastered the technique, and, like, it might not be, like, strong enough to actually do anything. It might just waste your energy. So I do have that respect for Yamcha, even though in this tournament it's kind of shown that the Kamehameha isn't special anymore with the whole Tenshinhan versus Jackie Chun, but we'll also get into that in just a second. But I know that this fight ends with Yamcha having a very, very hard fall and broken leg, but again, I think that this is
I would say the first meme. I would say the first of the memes of his life.
Yeah, well, I would say that the first meme of his life was him breaking a manga panel, but I mean, even though he had a very hard fall and had a broken leg, I still have a lot of respect for Yamcha in this fight because he put up a really good fight against Tenshinhan, even though he did make that one mistake at the very end of the fight.
Yeah, and I mean, but it also, maybe it wasn't meant to, but it also shows that sometimes one mistake will cost it all for you. And I mean, we're also kind of already assuming that Tien's gonna win because of how everything is. I mean, they're not gonna just set up this person to just be completely dominated, but you get to see Yamcha at least put up a good fight, and I'm glad that it wasn't just a joke.
Exactly. Like, the thing is like, what made the Yamcha fight against, like, Kami in disguise so bad was just because it was just a gag fight, and that's the moment where I feel like that the Yamcha jokes are more prominent. Like, not this Cybermen fight. Like, Yamcha is just, like, getting his balls smashed in just by, like, moves that didn't even look impressive.
Yeah, and his jaw crushed from a trip, like, pretty much.
Yeah, because I think that he was far more humiliated in that fight than the Cybermen fight, but again, we're kind of talking about
We'll talk about that
arcs.
Next episode.
Yep. So, I mean, the next fight that we move on to right here is Man-Wolf versus Jackie Chun, and I want to say that this gag fight actually works for me. Like, I actually laughed a couple of times while watching this. Like, there's a few things. Like, the furry hating furries. And it's just like Jackie Chun treats him like a dog, and she's like, here boy, go get the bone, boy. And he's just like, oh, do you take me for a fool? And he just, like, keeps going along with, like, these commands. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know, like, and another interesting thing that happens on the side of this is that we get introduced to flying as a technique because we see that Tenshinhan and Chiaotzu are flying in midair, and at this time, this is pretty special.
Oh yeah. Bukujutsu. I mean, it's introduced now, and it's something that our characters really don't obtain. It does happen inside Dragon Ball chapters, and theoretically, if you want to get on the argument, there is no such thing as Dragon Ball Z because the manga is all called Dragon Ball. But it's really, Bukujutsu isn't really a thing that's introduced to other characters that aren't Goku, Chiaotzu, or Tien until well into their adulthood in the anime that would, be Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, is that Tenshinhan has a pretty good advantage in this fight because of that thing. Just on to more of the Man-Wolf versus Jackie Chun. I think that this fight ends off on a really good gag. Like, unlike Bacterian, where it's just nasty, gross-out humor that ends on more nasty, gross-out humor, I love the whole thing of, like, Jackie Chun hypnotizing Man-Wolf, and it's just like, look at the full moon, it's just like pulls up Kuririn's head right there. That's amazing, and especially, like, in the next match where it's just like, next up, full moon Kuririn versus Chiaotzu.
Yeah, when the announcer likes to make jokes. But you also got to remember that that Man-Wolf actually is disqualified for pulling a blade out on Kami Sennin. And he doesn't even care. He's like, no, we'll keep it going. It's fine. Like that. He's so, I mean, obviously, I mean, he's a master of martial arts. He doesn't care, you know, about a weapon. He can disarm somebody, but he's so confident in his power that this dude's not going to be able to stab him, that he easily, you know, disarms him. And that's another thing that happens again in the 23rd tournament to an even higher extent, that it's just, I love seeing when people try to pull a real world weapon on these martial artists and they just treat it like it's nothing. And I know that happens in real life, but seeing this, you know, transition from real life to an anime that, like, you know, we're all obsessed over, it's just a crazy thing to think about. Like, I don't know if I could disarm somebody with a knife, but this man does it quick.
Absolutely. I mean, Roshi is just a amazing martial artist. I mean, there's the reason why he is called the Muten Roshi. And I think that it's more of just like, I like seeing people who attempt to cheat still lose against people who are playing against the rules, or just playing alongside the rules, should I say. So to me, that's like what makes that so satisfying. Would you agree?
No, yeah, most definitely. I love, and again, in the 23rd tournament, they do the same thing. I love when somebody tries to cheat and the other person's like, no, let them cheat. I'll still whoop their ass.
Exactly. Like, that is such a great payoff moment to just, I mean, any tournament fight or any fight with rules. But I would say we can move on to Kuririn versus Chiaotzu. And...
oh, the two baldies.
Yes, two baldies. One has one hair.
Yeah, I was about to say that's something that, you know, Chiaotzu gets to yell at Kuririn for, like, nah, I'm not bald, I got one hair.
Yep. And in this fight, Chiaotzu is intimidating for about 2 seconds, like I said before. Like, Chiaotzu being so blank-faced and cryptic at first, whenever he just, like, zooms in, like, without moving his hands, and they're just, like, out to his side, and all that kind of stuff, it's pretty off-putting. But the thing is that whenever Kuririn is just like, what's, like, 2 + 7, and he's just like, at that moment, that very moment, that is the moment where Chiaotzu is no longer intimidating at all for any part of this show. I mean, aside from him, like, kind of using his psychic powers to kind of stall someone, you know that he can't really take on someone strong like Goku or Kuririn in an actual fair fight. I mean, especially if they just ask him to count.
Now, the one thing I will say that I do like about him not knowing how to count, it does show, you know, Chiaotzu's age and maturity level at that point. But the main factor is that I would also say it shows how important Kame-sennin's training is compared to the Crane School's training, because, you know, Master Roshi's all about sleep, like resting, training, and knowledge, that he always made sure that Goku and Kuririn were learning. Even if it was something small, they were learning. And that seems like something that maybe the Crane Master did not instill into Chiaotzu and Tien, and that may be the reason why Chiaotzu acts the way he does.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same way, just because Goku knew his actual age after training for the 21st tournament, and Chiaotzu's still like, well, I have to pull out my fingers to count these kind of things. And yeah, like, I know that Chiaotzu at this point is kind of a joke, and he's gonna be even more of a joke later on, but he's way more powerful than meets the eye, because yeah, at this point, to be in this tournament, it's no small feat.
No, it's not. I mean, you had to take out, I mean, not individually, but there are 182 contestants that entered, and it's come down to 8, and now it's less since, you know, we've had a couple fights come through. So we're talking about the 6 strongest people in the world and them fighting. It's not an easy task to be one of the 6 strongest fighting people in the world. And honestly, if Kuririn wouldn't have figured out that math technique, I don't think he would have beat Chiaotzu. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, especially since Suru Sennin was just like, kill him slowly and painfully. So, it just kind of makes me think, like, if Suru Sennin just got his way through this whole tournament, I don't know what would have happened. I mean, of course, like, Chiaotzu would have been disqualified and all that, but, geez.
That doesn't stop people being dead.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, like, this tournament could have ended up a lot darker than it did. But I mean, let's move on to another match. So, Goku versus Ponpoot. And I would say that this is probably, like, the most satisfying. Goku owns this guy. Like, it's better than Goku versus Recoome and Birder, better than Goku versus Yakon. I mean, better than just Goku versus a lot of people. I mean, especially just, like, showing, like, how far he's progressed and all that. And it just, the way it seems is that Ponpoot seems like somebody who's equal to, like, King Choppa or, like, Nam, or someone who is, like, a top-tier fighter of the 21st tournament or something like that. And even though it was very short, like, just kind of, like, hearing about this kind of exposition about, like, oh, like, Goku actually did multiple strikes in this one instant. Like, that's pretty awesome stuff to me.
Especially since even trained martial artists for years didn't see that. That's something, you know, Tien had to actually point out with his third eye. It was, no, you thought that was an elbow he got, but no, it was, or you think it was one hit, but it was actually an elbow and 3 punches, but you didn't see that.
Yeah, and I love that about this arc, even though it's kind of never really brought up again about how Ten Shin Han's third eye really gives him this kind of, like, advantage in a way, being able to see these fast opponents' moves.
Yeah, and it also, I mean, Master Roshi even puts it out at that point. They're all above human mortal levels, that they are now dealing with superhuman powers. So, I mean, like, it just really sets the bar for how strong these people are at this point.
Exactly, and I know that, like, the human characters do become kind of, like, fodder later, but you have to remember, everyone just listening to this right here, like, I know most of you are used to Z and Super, but gosh, this was, like, the pinnacle of strength at this point. And like I said before, the Muten Roshi was just like, you might not ever see a fight this grand ever again, like, whenever it was the final matchup. So it just really goes to show, like, that these characters are superhuman to the max.
No, and I agree, and then we get to follow them throughout the rest of their life and become even more superhuman, but just reiterating what you said, it just really states the power that they have now and how it's just about to change the world, and honestly, it foreshadows how the world is about to be overtaken as well, because there are powers that are this strong.
Yes, and this actually is a perfect lead up to this next match, because this match has that theme right in there, and that is Jackie Chun versus Ten Shin Han. Because there's that whole thing during that match where the Muten Roshi actually has that epiphany of like, huh, you are strong enough, and I kind of have faith in this new generation, because he even has that moment with Ten Shin Han, like whenever he has that speech with him, is just like, you don't seem like really fit for being an evil guy, even though Ten Shin Han is just like, I want to be a great assassin just like Tao Pai Pai. And, I mean, just to go into this fight, it's another great martial arts fight, kind of like Yamcha versus Ten Shin Han, but, I don't know, it's better in a lot of ways, because there's things like the after image and Ten Shin Han seeing through that, Ten Shin Han busting out the Taio Ken for the first time, and, like, yeah, dishing out that one fatal blow to the Muten Roshi's pretty, like, neck or head.
Yeah, the back of his head.
Yeah, and it's just like, you won't get up from that. And the Muten Roshi kind of realizing, like, this guy is just ridiculously powerful.
Yeah, and then, I mean, he also, you know, reveals, like, that it's Jackie Chan is Roshi. So, I mean, there's other people that now 100%, other than, you know, Nam, but other than Nam, there are now other people that know that Muten Roshi is Jackie Chan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, is that we kind of get it revealed that these guys have telepathic powers, because Suru Senin is the one who reveals that, and he's just like, Ten Shin Han, he is the Muten Roshi, kill him right now. And, I don't know, like, one of the things I like about this fight is because it develops Ten Shin Han and kind of reveals that he's really not that bad of a guy as he kind of comes off to be, because, like, I remember during the first fight with Yamcha, he's just like, oh, I'm such a softie. I could have killed him, but I didn't. And, yeah, that kind of thing just kind of comes off as like, damn, this guy is a pretty bad guy, but, I mean, we get to see during the fight, like, after Jackie Chun is just like why do you serve Suru Senin? Like why do you do that? Like can't you use your powers other than some like evil purposes? And Ten Shinhan immediately kind of seems to be affected by these words because Jackie Chun's just like, oh, you're not so energetic anymore. Are you losing your nerve?
Yeah, and I mean, also, not only does it gets to him, I mean, his words get to him not only in changing his mind to go to be a quote-unquote good guy later and to actually train with the Kame School students, but, I mean, we get to see the words affect him anger-wise fighting Jackie Chun, and that soon he actually reveals that he is a lot like Goku, that Tien is a lot like Goku, and can learn techniques from just seeing them once. And I mean, we get to see Tien fire a Kamehameha as well in this fight.
Yeah, and one of the things is that I feel like that whenever he fired that Kamehameha, that would have killed a lot of spectators. I feel like that's kind of him, in a way, lashing out to Roshi's speech and not wanting to believe it, and just kind of being like, oh, well,
I'll show you a great assassin.
Yeah, like, that's exactly what I took it as, too. Like, yeah, like, a lot of people don't like having those lectures told to them, and sometimes they lash out. And especially with Ten Shinhan being taught by Suru Senin, the brother of Tao Pai Pai, the master assassin, it's very, very plausible that he might have been indoctrinated towards these kind of cruel teachings. So to me, like, I see Ten Shinhan again as someone who wasn't totally indoctrinated, but more of just somebody who was serving a master that he respected, but might not have totally...
He just happened to be serving the wrong master.
Exactly, and you see later about how he didn't exactly respect his methods, and that he kind of saw through it whenever Chiaotzu was paralyzing Goku.
Yeah, he sees it later on. It's that kind of thing, like, where you don't realize your crazy ex-girlfriend is crazy because you're in love, but then you realize later you're like, wow, I just noticed all of this stuff that was going on. That's funny how I was blind to that.
Exactly. That's actually a pretty good analogy, because, I mean, you have people who try and talk sense into you that the person that you really, really respect might not be the best person to hang around or idolize or share your life with or anything like that. But one of the things that I was saying earlier about what you were saying about the next generation coming up and how crazy things are going to get is just the ending of this match, and just how much I really respect Jackie Chun for kind of being like I'm done. That, like, something you could always say something like that he's satisfied. Say that he's satisfied. Yeah. So Jackie Chun sees that Ten Shinhan isn't as evil as what he thought he was, and that he sees that the new generation is going to be in good hands, should I say, of the best martial arts fighters, and that he can retire happily. That's basically what he said.
Yeah, he's also happy for the fact of that, like, not only is Goku very strong, but his students overall, Krillin and Yamcha, are very strong as well, in the top tier of fighters in the world, and Roshi feels that he can finally take his retirement seriously, that there are 4 and or more strong beings in this world, and that his help is no longer needed, so he can sit back and just enjoy his life now.
Exactly. He doesn't have to worry about his students, like, having that whole arrogant thing of, like, I am the strongest in the world, because Ten Shinhan is obviously going to be a rival to these two. As far as this series is right now, that's the way it's presented, because Ten Shinhan is definitely stronger than anyone has ever faced, because we see this whole thing of just like, oh, like, how could Goku defeat Tao Pai Pai, and then we see constantly like, oh, like, now I believe that Goku could defeat Tao Pai Pai, and then of course there's that knowledge that Ten Shinhan is as strong as what he is. So, I mean, I agree with that. It's a great thing that Goku, Krillin, or Yamcha won't get that thing in their heads where they feel like that they're the best ever on the planet. The strongest under the heavens.
And then after Jackie gives up and, submits to Tien, we get one of the greatest rivalry matches ever coming up next.
Absolutely. And just one of the things I love about Goku versus Krillin is just, it's two good friends fighting each other in a tournament. Like, that's something you can't really get from, say, a tournament from Dragon Ball Super, because they're fighting enemies or fighting other universes. So we never really get to see this kind of like friend versus friend dynamic in future Dragon Ball series. Hopefully we do get to see that one day. I mean, we got to see that with Goten versus Trunks, but I mean that's just kind of one thing. But I mean, just kind of like before this fight opens up, I remember like the Muten Roshi and Ten Shinhan talking. And it really does make me wonder what path Ten Shinhan would have gone down if Roshi never actually gave that speech to him, and if Ten Shinhan wasn't willing to hear him out. Because, I mean, just after this whole thing, you can really tell that Ten Shinhan is taking his words into consideration, because afterwards you see like this long pause of Ten Shinhan, like after their whole talk, and it's just like, yep, he's definitely taking this into consideration. So, I mean, kind of talk about that first.
Yeah, I mean, he really hears him out. I mean, especially for somebody who's listening to somebody who is talking ill about his master and everything. I think it's confirming ideas that Tien had about his master already in his head. But like I said about the crazy ex-girlfriend analogy, it's finally clicking in his head that maybe he shouldn't be going down the path that he is going, and maybe he should look for more of a peaceful path, because, I mean, I don't remember if it's clearly stated, but it seems that Roshi is telling him, with anger and hate, you will never be the strongest that you can truly be. You will only be the strongest you can be with peace.
Exactly. I couldn't honestly think of a better way to say that myself, but just to go on to the Goku versus Krillin match. Again, like, I feel like a broken record. This is another fight that just has great martial arts and strategy and practical moves that, like, are pretty gimmicky but work. Like, I mean...
No, yeah, this tournament's back-to-back, man. It's got great fights.
Yeah, I mean, Krillin is one of the ones who's actually utilizing these kind of strategies. Like, with him, like, using his bald head as kind of like a proto-Taiyoken, and then, like, him blowing up like a balloon, like, so that way Goku's hit doesn't hit him. Because, I mean, we find out in this fight that Krillin can't exactly just fight Goku head-on. Otherwise, he's gonna get owned.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's the other thing, is that we don't just get to see the strength that they've, amassed over the last 3 years. We get to see the knowledge that they've amassed over the last 3 years. And it's just, I mean, it's a fight that we've been waiting to see happen since their rivalry was ever even introduced in the first place. So, I mean, it's just time for both of them to shine. And it's the fact that that Krillin can't beat him head on, that he's gonna have to use some kind of tactic. And it's just great to try to see that he has tactic after tactic after tactic, that he really does understand how to get around Goku's moves, but, is ultimately overpowered.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things. Like, I absolutely love this kind of matchup just because it's just best friends having an all-out friendly matchup, and you can tell that they're really going up hard against one another. I mean, Goku in this fight said that it was the most fun fight he ever had in his life. So, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that kind of hits those, like, yes, I love that line. It's one of those things that it's just like, that's what a best friend would say to each other, and just the fact that Goku thinks that genuinely is just, I love it.
He also, we also get to see the ultimate weakness of Goku actually being fixed, where you think that Kuririn's gonna win for the fact of he got Goku's tail. And, he falls to the ground, pretends to be all woozy and everything. And, I mean, it's a real comedy act for Goku, because he waits till 9 and then pops up, and is like, haha, that's not my weakness anymore. And that's something that he does later on as well. And again, in the 23rd tournament, he does something like that as well, where he kind of, jokes around pretending to be knocked out and stuff like that. Like, it shows that Goku not only enjoys fighting, but he enjoys this whole tournament setup. And I mean, obviously that's explored later on into the series multiple times, but he really does love the Tenkaichi Budokai a lot. He really loves being there and fighting all the people there.
Yeah, I agree. And the whole tail thing is just, it's a great callback of just Goku improving on one of his weaknesses. And the only weakness he really has is just him being a little bit too trusting, because right before he does knock out Kuririn is just like, what's that over there? And he just slugs him in the face. And then this is where Goku's just like, sorry, gotta beat ya. And then he just like does like this movement where like he kind of like goes side to side while slowly approaching his opponent. And no, Kuririn can't keep up with that. And it's a pretty great finish. And what makes it kind of amusing on another level is just how the audience was just like, that was kind of anticlimactic. And Tien Shinhan is just like, really, guys? Really? He did like seven punches in that one instant. And I don't know.
And you didn't even see him walk up to the guy and he did 7 punches. So there's plenty of stuff you guys are missing with your eyes. Yeah, I mean, it's great because like we get to see certain people's views of this fight, and then we get to see other people, you know, the normal people's view of like, I don't really understand what's going on, so that's cool, I guess. And, you know, that also kind of plays into maybe why Mr. Satan was able to lie to people so easily about, like, you know, these amazing superhuman fighters having, you know, fake abilities.
Yeah, because I remember, like, him later on, he was just like, oh, it's all smoke and mirrors, guys. Like, it's all tricks. But, I mean, let's move on to the spectacle. The spectacle of this.
The final bout!
Yep, Goku versus Tien Shinhan. Turtle School versus Crane School. I mean, I don't know what there is not to love about this dynamic, because it's two rival schools going up against one another. So, I mean, I don't know. Just on the dynamic alone and just the way that this fight was built up, it's a really great fight, too. Because just, like, the beginning of it, just Goku's tail work, and then just, like, the whole Tien Shinhan's Dodonpa. It's such a great opener.
Yeah, and then, I mean, we even get to the point where early in the fight they're exchanging blows so heavily that you're like, man, they're matched. And then Tien actually knocks Goku through the wall.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And then just another thing is just Tien Shinhan seeing through the move that defeated Kuririn and just immediately counter that is just it's a great way of just amping up this fight and to really deliver tension for Goku winning.
Yeah, and then, I mean, after, you know, a little bit of the fight, anime-wise, and then panel-wise, you know, a small amount of panels, we get to see Goku actually, you know, look like he's about to be defeated by the volleyball technique. And after getting up, he's like, okay, I understand you're way stronger than what I suspected you to be, so I'm done using my tournament power level. I'm going to my real battle power.
I love that so much, just because of how Goku phrases it, just because it's like, oh, I'm going to use my tournament level power. I was using my tournament level power this whole time. Now it's time for my battle level. And Tien Shinhan's just like, really, dude? I doubt you're going to be that much stronger. It's just like...
And he's just amplitude stronger. And then, I mean, and not only is he amplitude stronger, but then Tien can match that. I mean, like, they both just dramatically jump up in power just after this one phrase of, like, basically, now I'm taking this fight seriously.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's because, like, Goku is just like, I feel like you're trying to kill me, so... maybe I should use more power. I don't know why that amuses me so much.
No, yeah, and then, I mean, it also shows Goku being smart about his stamina and his ki and everything, because there's certain times where he could have used, like, a Kamehameha, and he doesn't. Just so that he can save that little bit of power, because he knows that this is going to be one of the toughest fights of his life, if not the toughest fight of his life, since it's not for life or death, it's for, you know, championshipness. So, like, you're not going to be able to just put all of everything into one ki attack or into one punch to kill him, because if you kill him, you're disqualified.
Oh yeah, and Tien Shinhan brings that up whenever Surusenin commands him to kill Goku, but I mean, one of the things you really have to admire about these fighters is just their resilience. Like, these guys take some pretty hard slugs, like, damn. Like, this is, like, the first fight of the series, like, I think, where there's just, like, these crazy-ass slugs to the face and to the body where they just, like, rebound from them or, like, just immediately. It's just like, wow, I can't believe how tough you are. But, I mean, just to move on to just, like, one of my favorite moments of the fight is just, like, all the after-image fake-outs, because it's just like, ha, I got you in the back, and it's just like, oh, I got you in the back. And then Goku's just like, oh, like, I teleported behind you while you teleported behind me while you teleported behind me. I absolutely love that moment.
Yeah, it just seems like a joke at that point, but it's not. I mean, it's completely serious, but it comes off in a joking, like a funny toned way, but it's like, it just shows, again, I guess we're gonna keep bringing up this point, just how powerful these people are over the last 3 years and the power that they've just immenced. It's just showing that the power that these guys have actually, like, gotten over these years is just so incredible that, like, it's just comedical at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, this is the point of the fight where it really takes a turn, because Chiaotzu ends up interfering from the sidelines at this point. And this is where we see Tien Shinhan's change of heart. And I actually like it a lot, because even, like, it kind of, like, builds up slowly where Tien Shinhan, like, is just like, I just want to finish this match fair and square. And then it kind of goes to the point where he's just like, oh, I fully see now, like, how terrible Surusenin is. And just, I love the payoff moment of Roshi sending Surusenin flying with the Kamehameha. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, not only Tien, you know, I mean, this whole little ordeal over, you know, paralyzing Goku and everything actually shows the change of both of the students and how Chiaotzu really follows Tien, like you were saying earlier, more than he really does his own master. He really respects Tien more than his own master, and it's a nice little flip that I like, for the fact of they do try to stay loyal, you know, after leaving the Crane School. They still do respect their master for everything he did, but they understand that he's not a good guy and that he doesn't need to be in their lives anymore, and that, you know, that final Kamehameha actually gets him out of their lives, at least for a good little point.
Especially, like, the whole thing of, like, Roshi saying, like, now you guys can fight it out and duke it out to your heart's content. Even though, like, there's only, like, 2 things that happen after that, which is the 4 arms technique, which is pretty... It's pretty crazy just to see that, even though, like, Goku kind of outsmarts him. Just because, like, even though, like, even though Tien Shinhan pins down Goku, like, having all of his arms and legs in his hands, Goku still has his tail. Again, amazing tail work there.
Yeah, and I mean, also Goku uses his arms so fast that it's almost like 6 arms. So, I mean, he does really match Tien using his technique.
Yeah, and it's only because he has his arms flailing so fast, it appears like he has 8 of them. But again, let's talk about the climax of this thing, the Kikoho, and
my channel name.
Yep. No, your name is Kihokai, not
Dude, everybody calls me
Kikoho.
so much.
Yeah, Kikoho. But still, this is an amazing thing just because at this point, Goku can't fly, so the ring is gone and we have this pretty great setup of, like, who's gonna win, because Goku and Tien Shinhan are just flying down and he's just like, neither of us have energy to really, like, Tien Shinhan doesn't have energy to fly because he used the Kikoho,
and Goku uses that last, you know, little Kamehameha to, like, you know, impale him in the chest with his head like he likes to do so often.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that just because it's not what Tien Shinhan anticipated, because, like, he was just like, oh, really? You're gonna use a Kamehameha? That's not gonna defeat me. So just Goku using that to kind of pummel into him kind of tells me that in some circumstances, like, a regular punch just kind of propelled forward towards someone can be even more powerful than a ki blast or some kind of crazy technique. And
which is foreshadowing for later on when it happens multiple times with multiple characters for the rest of the series.
Yes. And then again, like I said in my last podcast, the anticipation who's going to win works a lot better in the anime than it does in the manga, just because whenever you're seeing them both fly to the ground and like the announcer,
it looks better in motion. It looks a lot better in motion.
Exactly. Like that's one of the things I think again is worth watching in the anime over the manga.
And it's just the stakes of it, man, because like you get the announcer who can't see what's happening, so he's trying to get closer and closer to see, you know, who's going to win and everything. And they're so far outside of the tournament ring that nobody has any idea of what's happening other than the announcer and, you know, these highly trained, skilled martial artists who can see it happening. He's using binoculars and everything to see what's going on. And basically the win is over 5 feet.
Yeah, and you even have this false sense of security in a way where, like, Goku just barely releases a Kamehameha to slow his fall, and you have this whole thing of like, oh, he's fallen, he's like slightly higher in the air, and just him hitting a car, that was quite the twist, honestly, the first time I saw this.
Yeah, and it's that the car was 6 feet off the ground, so he hit the car and hit the ground faster than Tien could just hit the ground. I mean, like, he was winning, completely winning, but the one car failed for him to be, you know, world champion. Again, for the second time in a row, failure to be world champion.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like about this, again, is that we have another thing of, like, where it's like Goku could have really won this thing if it wasn't for this technicality, or if it wasn't for that. Like in the Roshi, like in the Jackie Chun versus Goku match, if Goku's foot was longer, or if his leg was longer, he might have knocked out the Muten Roshi. But, I mean, again, like, Ten Shinhan is just like, I won by pure luck. It wasn't just because, like, I was stronger or better fighter. Like, Goku, you're clearly the better fighter than me. And I think it's just a great redeeming moment for Ten Shinhan, just seeing him that humbled.
Yeah, it really humbles him. And I mean, it humbles him to the point that even after he gets the money, he said, or like after he wins and, you know, gets everything, he says, I need to repay you. The money is really yours. How about we split it in half? And he goes, what do I need money for? Like, I don't know what money is. And then that's when Tien's like, you know, let me pay for your meal. And then we get the joke of like, nope, you're going to lose all your money if you pay for his meal.
Exactly. And yeah, and this is whenever the lunch and Ten Shinhan shipping is born. Yeah, exactly, and she follows him up until the Saiyan arc, and, I mean, this arc really does end in a very satisfying way, but then, again, it's a really dark ending for this arc.
The tone shifts, man. The tone shifts completely.
Massively, because at the end of this arc, Kuririn dies. Bum, bum, bum!
So, I do want to talk about this, obviously. I find this very funny between, you know, little differences between the manga and the anime. In the anime, they actually all go out to eat, and Tien, you know, holds his side of the bargain up. But not only does Goku in the manga lose his best friend because he's tired, and his friend says that he'll go get his, you know, his power pole and his grandpa's Dragon Ball. Goku never gets his food in the manga because they don't go out to eat. They're out inside of the tournament stadium when Kuririn actually runs back inside, and they hear his scream, and that's what makes them run back into the tournament hall and find him dead on the ground. So not only is Goku's best friend dead at the end of this arc, he's hungry.
Yeah, exactly, and that really does tie into his fight versus Tambourine, but I would say that we've reached the end of this podcast for today, but do you have anything else to say about this tournament or any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
My last thoughts on this tournament are, I really feel that this tournament shifts the world of Dragon Ball more so from physical power into mental power and being able to release that energy through techniques, and actually it shifts the tone of Dragon Ball from really Goku trying to be the strongest and, you know, fighting people that he thinks are stronger than him and overcoming those, into actually being dominated by a evil power and presence. And it's really the first true world-ending situation, or the first possible world-ending situation that our friends are put into, and that really shifts the tone for the continuation of Ball into Z, into GT, and even into Super. Just how powerful the next villain can always be.
Yes, exactly. Like, I do feel like that this really did take it a step up from the last tournament and even the Red Ribbon Army arc, of just how strong and how strategic these next fighters that are going to be whenever we see them come up. And yeah, I don't know, it, again, like I said at the beginning of this thing, this is top tier shonen. This is like everything I would want out of a tournament arc.
No, yeah, most definitely. And I know we're not really gonna go through it, but with everything he learns from this tournament and how to read other fighters even better, he does use that to take down Piccolo, Daimao, and everybody in the next saga. And then that introduces the rivalry for what the next tournament is, and that will be what we're talking about in the next episode.
Yes, guys, and if it's already out, I will actually link it on the screen right now, the 23rd tournament. But if you're listening to this right now, check the date of the video, and the next video will probably be out in maybe a month from now. But anyways, guys, make sure you subscribe to Kihokai 1994. He makes a lot of excellent videos. One of the series that I like is called Dragon Ball Side Stories. There's going to be stuff in there that you definitely want to check out and is worth listening to. But anyways, we're going to end the video now, and I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you in the next podcast or video.